It's time for Lefties Losing It. Rosie O'Donnell. We're going to talk about Rosie again. She continues to make a fool of herself in TV interviews. It appears since fleeing America due to an incurable case of TDS, her full-time job is doing these daft interviews where she says stuff like this.
I knew after reading Project 2025 that if Trump got in, it was time for me and my non-binary child to leave the country. And although I was not one of the celebrities who announced that that's what I would do, I made the decision within my family and my therapist, and should he win, and then when he did, we made the plan into action, and we were gone before he was inaugurated.
Yes, she fled with her non-binary child to a country that is more socially conservative than much of America, certainly more than the blue city she fled. Rosie is not that bright, it seems. Perhaps she missed the fact that Ireland's abortion laws are pretty strict, only freely available in the first trimester, or the fact that fewer than 1 in 5, 17% in fact, of Irish folk agree with laws allowing a person to change their birth certificate when they self-identify as the opposite sex. But Rosie doesn't care about those sorts of facts. She's obsessed with Project 25.
It's been heartbreaking, I have to tell you. I knew that if I was in the United States and watched him destroy the country and the Constitution and really pay no mind to any of the laws that the founders stood by and that our country stands for as a beacon of shining light and freedom for the rest of the world, that should he do what the Heritage Foundation said he was going to do in that Project 2025, that we were going to be in big trouble. And it's as bad as they promised and even a little bit worse. And it's been heartbreaking and personally very, very sad to watch.
I tell you, not everyone is happy with Rosie moving to Ireland. Let's hear from this local woman.
Rosie O'Donnell has just moved to Ireland. How do you feel about her coming to Ireland?
I'm pretty disgusted, to be honest. I'm fully aware of the housing situation here, and for someone to come to our country to hide from the President of the United States, they're very not welcome here. It's absolutely disgusting.
Now to the University of North Carolina, where Republican Nancy Mace was being heckled by some dude in a dress demanding an apology. Listen here how his voice changes about halfway through this exchange.
Does your husband call you babe? I'm not married. Okay, so even better. I don't care. Okay, so I would like for you to apologize, but it is derogatory, and second of all. Is tranny derogatory to you?
Well, yeah. Of course the
Tranny. Yeah, tranny. If that's derogatory, you are I'm sorry.
Oh, that was a dramatic change, wasn't it? And why did he pick up that pot plant? Was he going to water it or hurl it at someone? Now, let's check in with our friends at CNN who are now reporting on Joe Biden's cognitive decline. It's a little bit late now. Let's have a look at what they were claiming last year in the lead up to that debate with Donald Trump.
President Biden has spent days locked in intense preparation, surrounded by his closest advisors at Camp David. And our sources are telling us tonight that full mock debates are underway at the podium, under the lights. He's even watching tape to know exactly what he's going to see when he steps up to that lectern. His team shot a video during a walkthrough of the CNN studio. And as I reported while covering him at the White House, when Biden prepares, he does so incredibly intensively.
Oh, really, Caitlin? Incredibly intensively? Does that include poolside naps because he's got no idea what's happening? Let's hear what CNN is saying now that it doesn't really matter. And thanks to Mace Maher for this bit of gold.
So just how worried were Biden aides before the former president's disastrous debate last summer? According to Ron Klain, his chief of staff, his concerns could not be overstated. At his first meeting with Biden for debate prep, quote, Klain was startled. He'd never seen Biden so exhausted and so out of it. Biden was unaware of what was happening in his own campaign. Halfway through the session, the president excused himself and went off to sit by the pool. The part about the pool, he went off, this is in the middle of debate prep, went off to the pool and he took a nap.
And let's hear from Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, who claimed that Biden was as sharp as a tack. Now she thinks her lies about the president are some big joke.
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen decline.
Can you believe that? That interviewer, Sam Fragoso, did a fantastic job there. These people really are beneath contempt. Listen to Pocahontas here.
He was sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him. Live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences is not praise.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Now, after that dinner at the White House, lefty luminary Bill Maher is doing his best to redeem himself with the loony mob who are outraged that this ardent Trump hater would break bread with the president and then give an honest appraisal of what happened during that dinner. But as Maher said, he was not going to stop criticising the president or the VP, it seems.
We have a constitutional crisis. Today, Melania had a jacket that said, "I'm starting to care." And not just Trump, J.D. Vance, our vice president, he's in Rome. You know, he's a convert, a recent convert to Catholicism. I know he's married to a Hindu, goes right to the Catholics. I don't know what that says. He converted to Catholicism because he heard priests like little pricks. So.
I'm not sure that's going to be enough to stop the hit pieces and the mockery from the likes of Larry David, who lampooned Maher with this piece in the New York Times entitled "My Dinner with Adolf." In it, David wrote, "Here I was, prepared to meet Hitler, the one I'd seen and heard, the public Hitler, but this private Hitler was a completely different animal." Joining me now is Newsweek Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, how disappointing to see this unfunny mess from a comedy great like Larry David.
Well, I wish I could say it were surprising, Rita. It's not even remotely surprising. Larry David has one of the most notorious cases of Trump derangement syndrome from sea to signing C here in the United States. You know, it's worth noting that since October 7th and the horrific tragedy in Israel there, so Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David co-created Seinfeld, the sitcom here back in the 1990s there. Jerry Seinfeld, to his credit, has actually been very outspoken against the raging pro-Hamas mobs. Larry David has not said a single word. And this is a man who, it's actually much more than just that one issue for him. You know, I heard once upon a time a story from Alan Dershowitz, of all people, another man who has heterodox political views. But apparently Larry David saw Alan Dershowitz at a supermarket or a local convenience store in Martha's Vineyard, where I guess they both have a house. And Larry David just started yelling at the top of his lungs at Alan Dershowitz for having the temerity to represent Donald Trump in his impeachment proceedings back in 2020 there. I mean, Larry David, this is not a fun thing for me to say. I actually love Curb Your Enthusiasm. I think Larry David genuinely is a funny person when he wants to be a funny person, but as is too often the case, whether it's Larry David, whether it's Robert De Niro, whether it's any of these other celebrities who are very good when they stay in their lane, but they have a very nasty habit of getting outside their lane. Frankly, Rita, between me and you, I happen to be a huge proponent of the old Laura Ingraham line, which was said in a very different context about LeBron James, of shut up and dribble. So in this particular case, to Larry David, I would say, shut up and just tell some funny jokes.
He's almost become a caricature of his character on Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I've got to say, I loved Curb so much, but the last couple of seasons, it did kind of jump the shark a little bit. Still had a few good moments, but there's just a lot of weaker moments. Well, you know what? No one can be in peak condition throughout their comedy career, and I guess Larry David is an example of that. But that piece was just so pitiful, Josh. I mean, and so cliched to go to a Hitler analogy. Really? I mean, like, it's just so old and I don't know. I thought he was above that. Now, former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has earned the title of Captain Obvious by admitting that, well, something everybody knew, that MSNBC is hopelessly biased to the left, whether it's opinion programs or news reporting. She said in a recent podcast that when we talk about Trump, it's typically not going to be positive. I don't think anybody watching expects it to be positive, right? Well, no, we don't. But I do wonder if MSNBC viewers do think they're getting impartial news reporting. Opinion is opinion, but you would hope that when you're reporting something as a journalist, you can at least pretend to be unbiased and straight down the line.
So MSNBC's ratings here are absolutely positively horrific. It was really not that long ago, actually, that Elon Musk was making some waves by talking about potentially purchasing MSNBC, which I would be the first to very strongly encourage him to do. Elon, if you're still considering it, I think this would be a wonderful idea, actually. But their ratings have been quite pitiful for a number of years now. They're somewhat of a fraction of the ratings of CNN, which are themselves just a tiny, tiny fraction of Fox News, which totally dominates cable news here in the United States there. I mean, Jen Psaki's saying the obvious part out loud. You know, here's what I will say, though, speaking of Fox News. You know, Fox News primetime lineup here, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, folks like that. You know, say what you will, but for most of the daytime programming on Fox News, you're getting straight news here in the United States there. MSNBC, I'm not aware of a single hour of the day. I'm not aware of a single hour of the day when you're getting anything other than just straight DNC, Democratic National Committee talking points, straight up propaganda there. I mean, the fact that they have someone like Jen Psaki on the payroll hosting a show basically says everything you need to know. Frankly, Rita, actually, I think back to Mehdi Hasan, who was actually let go of MSNBC over the past year and a half or so. Man, does that say a lot about Mehdi Hasan, actually, that he was too far left too often in Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs land and La La Land, that even MSNBC felt the need to let him go there. But Jen Psaki, as a former Biden spokesperson, is basically right at home there. And the viewers at this point, she's right, they expect that there, but they're being fed a delusion of lies on a day-in basis there. It's not good for them. It's not good for the country. It's not good for anyone.
No, and the Democrats on MSNBC and elsewhere have gone from defending this so-called Maryland dad, the MS-13 gangbanger was in the country illegally, has now been deported to El Salvador. They've gone from defending him, Josh, to now lionizing him. A number of Democrats have travelled to El Salvador to try to meet with him, advocate on his behalf, and their supporters, the Democrat voters, are posting content like this.
Kilmar Abrego Garcia will be coming home. I'm so happy for you and your child and your family and your friends and your community. And I'm so happy for our country. You are the sprinkle of good news right now in this country. So you're a symbol, brother.
The sprinkle of good news, Josh, a symbol. It's so crazy that I almost think it must be a parody. But then I see Democrats, elected Democrats, saying as much as they travel to South America to try to bring this miscreant back into the country.
Yeah, so with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, we're talking here, let's be clear, not just about an illegal alien, not just someone who was found to have credible affiliations with MS-13, one of the most murderous transnational gangs in the entire Western Hemisphere. You know, he also, his wife or his ex-wife, I forgot the exact relation, also filed for a restraining order because he was a domestic abuser there. Yeah. So, Mr. All-American there. I mean, seriously, like the way this person describes Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the way that MSNBC and Jen Psaki describe him, Mr. Maryland man, you would think he's out there strapping in his white T-shirt and his jeans at the white picket fence, the cat, the dog, the wife, the kids. He's Mr. All-American, right? He's nothing like that. He's not an American citizen. He's a miscreant. He's a thug. He's a criminal. He's tied to MS-13, and he's back now where he belongs. But what does it say about the Democrats that they go to the mattresses for someone like Kilmar Abrego Garcia? They go to the mattresses for people like Mahmoud Khalil, the Hamas-sympathizing Syrian or Algerian national who was recently sent packing, or at least is in the process of going packing because of his involvement with the Columbia University pro-Hamas riots last spring there. They love these people there. The left consistently takes these 80-20 or 90-10 issues on the wrong side of the ledger, Rita. Sometimes I just scratch my head and I look at clips like this. I look at this stunt like Chris Von Hollen, the dim-witted senator from Maryland, flying down to El Salvador on the taxpayer dime, visiting this miscreant in Nayib Bukele's maximum security prison there. I mean, literally literally, who is the market for this? Like, literally, what is the constituent? And I sometimes I just throw my hands up, Rita. Sometimes I just say I have no idea what they're trying to do. I really don't.
Who's the target market? I guess MSNBC's ever diminishing number of viewers, because the deportation policy remains enormously popular, and it's probably going to get even more popular with this new information. The policy has seen a 655% spike in arrests of terrorists in the US, including one of India's most wanted. New Homeland Security data obtained by the New York Post shows the Trump administration's mass deportation raids have nabbed more than 200 known or suspected terrorists since January, including the man accused of masterminding a grenade attack in India, who has ties to a US-designated terrorist organisation in Pakistan. Josh, these cases do not get much media attention, not like the Maryland dad, but the deportation plan remains popular with Americans, particularly Trump voters.
Oh, yeah, it's overwhelmingly popular. I mean, Donald Trump's immigration agenda, I mean, do not let the New York Times or MSNBC delude you into thinking anything to the contrary. It is actually wildly popular. The national polling reflects this, by the way. I mean, let's take Donald Trump's maybe signature campaign promise, which is to deport all of the illegal aliens here. So when I first started following this data, call it 13, 14 years ago or so, around the time that I was getting ready to start law school here in the United States, that was a losing issue for Republicans. For Republicans who took the maximal hawkish position on immigration that we were going to deport all illegal aliens, you had roughly 30 to 35% towards 2012, 2013, around then. You look now at the data, well over 60%, depends on the poll, but typically well over 60% of Americans now say that they support deporting all illegal aliens from this country. That is a veritable sea change. That is a massive, massive sea change here on the issue of illegal immigration there. And the data basically speak for itself, Reed. Ever since this administration got started there, encounters between illegal aliens and Customs and Border Protection at the southern border are dramatically down there. Gotaways, which are basically illegal aliens who show up between ports of entry, manage to escape into the American interior. Those numbers are way down as well there. All of it has to do from the top guy on down. It has to do with Donald Trump. It has to do with Stephen Miller, the exceptional deputy White House chief of staff in charge of immigration policy. It has to do with Tom Homan, the border czar, who was just frankly just fantastic. He's just a magnificent, one of the unheralded, unsung heroes of this administration there. So from soup to nuts, the immigration agenda is actually working very, very well in terms of political popularity. Now, the courts are doing their darndest. They're doing their darndest here to gum up the works. That's basically the best tool that the anti-Trump resistance has there. They're not going to let go of that anytime soon there. That's a whole nother can of worms. But other than the whole judicial issue there, it's working quite well, I would say, from an Article II presidential power perspective.
Now, the tariff wars are continuing there and continuing to impact the stock market. Donald Trump has indicated today that he is going to reduce the tariffs on China ultimately. Josh, it's interesting to see so many on the left side with China, side with the Chinese Communist Party that kills dissidents, enslaves the Uyghurs. It's a brutal regime that is a clear and present danger to the West. And you wrote about President Trump and his life's work culminating with this confrontation with China. Tell me why you argue America's trade war with China has to happen and why this rogue superpower, as you call them, must be crushed.
Well, China has been ripping the crap out of the United States for decades on end. And Donald Trump, to his great credit, has been at the tip of the spear of pointing this out time and time and time again. Even as elites of both parties here in the United States continue to issue all these platitudes about how welcoming China into the Western economies would somehow be better for all parties involved here. Back in the Bush administration in the early 2000s, Republicans and Democrats alike both welcomed China into the World Trade Organization. It has not worked out well. It has not worked out well at all. China routinely pilfers American intellectual property and trade secrets simply as a cost of doing business there. Then they basically steal that intellectual property. They illegally subsidize it in violation of World Trade Organization rules, and then export them for dumping in foreign markets well below market value there. This is a rogue country on the geopolitical chessboard as well. Look at how they're siding with Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, how they're routinely siding with Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba. I live in South Florida. China is very, very close cozy with Cuba just 90 miles off our shore. They are controlling large swaths of the Panama Canal. They have a deep water port in Peru. This is the threat. I mean, we have literally given our civilizational foe, our geopolitical foe, we've literally given them the rope with which to hang ourselves. The mere fact now that we are so dependent on Chinese goods there makes it a very difficult situation to try to claw our way out of there. But Donald Trump is a very prescient, forward-thinking guy on this issue there. He's fundamentally, Rita, trying to become the first president since Richard Nixon visited Mao Zedong in 1972. He's trying to become the first president to undo the contemporary, modern U.S.-China economic relationship bear hug. I wish him nothing but the best. This trade war has to happen there. Frankly, I take solace in knowing that we have the right man at the right time for the right cause. So I just say Godspeed, Mr. President.
It will be fascinating to see how this plays out. This is not a short-term strategy. This is something for the long-term health of the country, the long-term health of the West, and I think many people are losing sight of that. They're just looking at the fluctuations in the stock market daily and wanting decisions to be based on that. Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita.